All right, good morning. Thank you all very much for being here today. When the governor vetoed SB 1253, which would have helped protect our children from pedophiles, I wasn't surprised, seeing as she's vetoed a record amount of legislation this session. But I was massively disappointed. The bill would have required a parent of a student who was also registered as a sex offender to annually provide notice to their child's school. Seems like a pretty straightforward concept to me, and actually quite necessary as a law to have in place. In the governor's veto, she referenced the requirement for sex offenders and them notifying the school district in which they live. This has nothing to do with SB 1253. The issue we were actually trying to address is that just because you live in one school district doesn't mean your child necessarily attends school there. In the event a pedophile's child goes to a school in a different district, currently there's no law that states they have to tell the school. This veto shows exactly how little understanding of the bill went into the decision. Seems to be a common thing with the ninth floor. That and the fact that they're wildly out of touch with Arizonans. Just like she doesn't seem to understand the importance of protecting our children from pedophiles, she doesn't seem to understand the importance of passing a bill to legalize the sale of home-cooked food like tamales. Her veto of the cottage foods bill has been subject to extreme criticism and outrage over the last week from both sides of the aisle. More importantly, from hardworking Arizonans who deserve better. Again, Governor Hobbs completely out of touch. So I started things off by saying I was disappointed she chose not to protect our children from pedophiles, but a survivor of child sexual assault chose the word disgusted, and she was retaliated against for it. Kayleigh Kozak, the namesake behind Kayleigh's law, which we proudly passed in 2021 to further protect victims of sexual assault, was set to be the keynote speaker during a National Crime Victims' Rights Week event this morning. Notice I said was. And that's why she's here with me today. Immediately after Kayleigh tweeted her opinion on the veto, she got a call from the head of the Victim Services Division within the Maricopa County Attorney's Office saying her invitation to be the keynote speaker had been formally revoked due to her criticism of the veto. I guess now the ninth floor is actually in the business of retaliating against sexual assault survivors for having an opinion on the lack of care and protection for victims. The word that comes to my mind is much harsher than disgust. I'm here today to state that I firmly stand with Kayleigh, with all victims of sexual assault, for parents who want to protect their children from predators, and with hardworking Arizonans that deserve a whole lot better than what Katie Hobbs has shown over the last 100 days. With that, I would like to introduce Senator Sina Kerr to say a few words. I'm trying to get this underneath.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. I can't thank Kayleigh Kozak enough and Senator Shamp for running this bill, for putting so much hard work and care into protecting our most vulnerable, and that's our children at school. It is a very sensible bill, much needed. It closed a terrible loophole for sex offender notifications. And it's been my honor to work with Kayleigh for the last several years as we were able to get Kayleigh's law, the first of its kind in the nation. And Kayleigh has worked tirelessly across the nation and is seeing success as Kayleigh's law is being implemented in different states and being considered. It is unconscionable that our governor would care more about padding her veto numbers so she could send out a 100-day fundraising letter on how many vetoes she has done, and leaving bills like this and many other very, very good bipartisan bills at the veto pen. Just, it makes absolutely no sense at all. And so I thank Kayleigh so much for her incredible passion, her courage to continue the fight. This is not easy. And I just am so honored to get to be a partner with her and to get to help get other victims' rights bills across the finish line. Her First Amendment rights were just so heinously violated on this important week that we should be honoring and supporting our victims, our victim survivors. And so I want to introduce to you just an incredible champion. She's not going to remain silent. She will continue to offer her opinion boldly and proudly. And I think we should all be disgusted when bills like this are vetoed. And with that, I just want to say, Kayleigh, you still matter. The people you fight for still matter. And God bless you. Please help me welcome Kayleigh.
Good morning. April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Every 68 seconds, an American is sexually assaulted, and every 9 minutes, that victim is a child. Sadly, I fall into these statistics. I'm the namesake behind Kaleigh's Law, which provides victims of crimes, most notably sex crimes, the option to petition the court for an injunction that is valid for their entire life. I was determined to get this law in place because the system was failing me as a victim and continues to fail victims daily. Through the process, I have discovered many loopholes within the current laws, including one that allows sex offenders with parental rights to skip notifying the school which their child attends of their sex offender status. This is what SB 1253 was based on. In January, I was contacted by Sean Cox and Rachel Mitchell with the Maricopa County Attorney's Office. They asked me to be the keynote speaker at the Arizona Crime Victims' Rights Award ceremony. This collaborative event is put on by the Governor's Office, the AG's Office, Maricopa County Attorney's Office, the Department of Corrections, Department of Public Safety, Juvenile Corrections, and the Arizona Criminal Justice Commission. The theme for this event is Survivor Voices: Elevate, Engage, and Affect Change. It calls upon our communities to uplift and amplify the voices of survivors and give them the confidence that they will be heard, believed, and supported. It was truly an honor to be asked to speak at this event. On April 6th, Governor Hobbs vetoed SB 1253, stating that there are various ongoing notification requirements, including notifying the school district in which the offender lives. That's not what this bill was about. The governor's veto signaled to me that she didn't care about the safety of our children in the different school districts. I tweeted my disgust about the governor's decision to veto this bill. I felt she was protecting pedophiles over children in schools. On April 10th, Sean Cox contacted me again to inform me that my invitation and keynote speaker offer for the Arizona Victims' Crimes Award ceremony had been rescinded because of my tweet. To be clear, I used the word disgusted and the phrase prioritizing protecting pedophiles. The members of this committee for the event, who have yet to be identified, made the decision to uninvite me. Let that sink in. They told me they were anguished and concerned, uncomfortable having me share the stage with officials that I have been openly critical of. I can't help but feel like I'm being personally punished. I consider it a clear violation of my First Amendment rights. It appears that speaking out against elected officials results in retaliation, which feels very authoritarian. They have made unfulfilled promises and misled victims, and they have tried to silence me for pointing that out. This is what re-victimization looks like. I have been re-victimized by the very system and the people who claim that they support victims and victims' rights. The same people who are hosting an award ceremony in just 2 hours, honoring the outstanding achievement and the tireless efforts of those serving victims in Arizona. I was supposed to be recognized and honored for this. To quote, share my compelling story. Or perhaps maybe it was just to maintain their image and their reputation. But because I expressed an opinion that hurt the delicate feelings of my state's officials, I was ostracized. I was 12 years old when my abuser targeted me. He used his position and his power to manipulate and silence me. I stand here today with a very similar feeling, one that's so relatable. As if these government officials are doing something very similar. They targeted me by using their position and their power to attempt to silence me, but I will not be silent. To anyone who has been a victim of sexual assault, know that I deeply empathize with everything that you've gone through. It's unfair and no one should have to experience this. You are my reason. I know the trauma never completely goes away, and no matter how much time goes by, you cannot simply forget. We've learned how to live in survival mode. I know how hard it can be to just simply exist some days. The paralyzing feeling that comes over you when a certain song is played, or there's a specific smell in the air, even when you hear their name and it stops you dead in your tracks. I know what it's like to have those around you minimize what was done to you and treat you as though what happened was your fault, but it wasn't. The deep trauma and pain that cannot be seen is there, and know that I feel it too. We are forever healing for what another person chose to do to us. And although we can't control what happened to us, we can control how we respond. That is why I will not be intimidated or silenced. I will not give up. I am pouring everything I have into speaking for victims everywhere because I know the hell that we feel trapped in and what we have endured. I will not ignore the blatant overreach and abuse of power from these Arizona state officials. I will not sugarcoat a single thing just to spare their feelings. I would like to thank Senator Shamp and Senator Kerr for their willingness to stand up and sponsor bills for victims like myself. We need more officials like them. To everyone who has joined us here today, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for your support. To all of the victims out there, although you may have become a victim of crime due to someone else's choices, you are a survivor. You have survived what happened to you. Do not forget that. Lastly, to every agency and individual who is involved in doing the complete opposite of what this event entails, you may have stripped me the opportunity of sharing my story on stage at the event being held today, but by ostracizing me, you have done one thing right. And that is set a different stage to amplify my voice as a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, share my story, and expose yourselves for how you actually treat victims of crime in the state of Arizona. I will never stop fighting for victims and survivors because you still matter. Thank you. With that, I will. I'd be happy to take a couple questions.
I think that means you nailed it.
Yes. Very good.
Well, I'll say, can I say something though instead of a question?
Certainly, George.
The reason why everybody's so silent because you went through a devastating time, man. And for that, I'd like to give you personally a round of applause for stepping up out of here and saying what you said. Because the question is, we don't have any questions. The only question, why? And how we're going to move forward from that. And that is the question why everybody's so silent. You know what I mean? I was a coach and I understand what you just said. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, George.
You're a very brave lady, man.
Thank you. Thank you, George. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you.